Hello! Today we will listen to stories from the life of Shegluk Anas. What can you tell about yourself?
I am from Ukraine, a tourist city, Odessa. Odessa is rich in theaters, beautiful parks, historical monuments, colorful streets where you can truly feel the soul of the city. Breathe in the air, real Odessa air, with the smell of the sea and fried fish. Odessa is an incredible city, and the most incredible thing about it is the people. Odessans are very open people, and we are ready to welcome everyone with all our hearts.
Okay, tell us about yourself.
I graduated from Ukrainian school, received an art education, professionally engaged in
Чувством моим
choreography,
не шути.
and recently started playing the
Выйди
guitar.
по дорогам к поезду друга,
Tell us about
друга
education in Ukraine.
проводи.
I want to note Irish education is very different from Ukrainian. Our schools do not provide such an opportunity for development in music and the visual arts. More emphasis is placed on the exact sciences, passing exams and tests. But even despite in the classes, we found time to organize concerts and shoot various films. In this video you can see how my classmates and I filmed a congratulatory video to our parents on March 8.
Buenos noches, сеньоритос. Хотелось поздравить с 8 марта и женским днем. Пожелать, чтобы у вас все было по маракасам и все хорошо в ваших жизнях.
Дорогие девушки, чтобы цвет настроения был синий, внутри мартини, а в руках бикини.
С этим праздничным днем, и чтобы в голову вскружила и до упаду. Здравствуй, тебя весь мир кружит.
Tell us about the period of your life when you studied at the art academy.
I have been involved in fine arts since early childhood. I graduated from the art academy with excellent marks, participated in many competitions, and won prizes. It was really great. I met interesting people, learned a lot of new things, and gained invaluable experience. Of course, I owe all my skills in drawing to my teachers. They taught me everything that I can do. They taught me not only how beautifully lay paint on canvas, they taught me to see the world as it is and may transfer my emotions and thoughts to the canvas. I'm also very grateful to my classmates with whom we went this way. Not everyone was able to do it to the end, but I also thank them for the time spent together.
Share your memories of the period where you were engaged in choreography.
Our team was called Maria. We learned to convey the emotions of song by dancing. The brightest moments were when we went to competitions with the team. All our trips were unforgettable. Dancing taught me to go to the end and not be afraid of anything. I also want to note that teamwork is very important.
Of course, I understand that it can be hard, but could you share how the war began for you, how it affected you?
On February 24, my life changed. On that day, I planned to go quietly to school, but at 4 in the morning, my mom woke up me and said, "The war started." And from that moment, everything changed. I remember when we left home. On the 11th day, we moved to the village and we lived there. I remember well the moments when we were sitting in the basement and sirens sounded outside. And every time the thought was spinning in my head that the next rocket could hit our house. Sitting and listening to my great-grandmother's stories, I imagined that it was scary, but when you experience it live, carrying it on your shoulders, it feels completely different.
Can you tell a story from what you experienced?
I remember April 23rd, Easter. We sat in the kitchen and painting Easter eggs with the whole family. Nothing foreshadowed trouble. We were just talking and quite unexpectedly, a loud whistle from a flying rocket was heard on the street. I remember well the moment when time stood still for me. It seemed that everything stopped for 2 minutes, although it took about a few seconds. At that moment of realizing that a rocket was flying right over our heads, I was seized by incredible fear and horror. But my preparedness for such events made me forget about fear and rushing off to run to the shelter. Then I didn't even have time to put on my shoes and I ran barefoot on the cold ground. I woke up only in the basement with the realization that I was standing in a cold, damp room with bare feet on a stone floor. Below the sounds of rockets and explosions were heard. After I realized that I was in a more or less safe place, I was seized with an experience for the lives of people dear to me. In an instant, only one thought that at any moment I could lose them put me in such a state that my hands began to tremble and the air gradually ended, and with every second I exhaled all my supply of oxygen. My eyes could only distinguish color-blurred spots, and my legs gave me way and could no longer hold me. The insane fear that did not allow me to think sensibly gradually swallowed up my mind, and with all my strength I held on so as not to panic. My relatives did everything possible not to show that they were also scared, but it was clearly felt, right in their eyes, through the dim light of barely luminous bubbles. I'm grateful to all my parents who saved my life, and to soldiers who protect the peace of people now in Ukraine.
How did you decide to leave your native country?
This decision was not easy for our family. It meant not only leaving the country, but also leaving relatives in the place where the war was now going on. We had no more than a day to make a decision, so the answer was not long in coming. It was very scary. We didn't know what awaits us there and how we will live there. Having gathered in less than half a day, we collected all the necessary things, and on April 28th, the day came when our evacuation bus set off for the city of Varna. On the morning of that day, I saw my family for the last time. With tears in their eyes, they said goodbye to us before we boarded the bus. Taking our seats, we realized that we might never see them again and never hear laughter, never look into their eyes. But our lives had to be saved, and we had no choice. When the bus started, a long journey from Ukraine to Ireland began. For many hours we drove, watching beautiful landscapes, occasionally stopping at gas stations. Outside the window flashed fields overlapping with checkpoints where military inspection vehicles stood. On the way we met interesting people who became our comrades on this beautiful journey. Upon arrival, we had to draw up our documents, and we went to the police station where everyone on the bus lined up to receive documents. After me and my sister, my mother went to the documents, and we got back on the bus to guard things. After 5 minutes, the bus unexpectedly started moving. Panic began. People began interrupting each other, shouting out various questions and claims to those who did not warn about sending. I tried to calm the crowd and say that now we are going to the distribution center, where we'll be given permission for temporary housing. When we arrived, my sister and I unloaded the suitcases and waited for my mother. About an hour and a half later, she arrived by taxi. After we waited several hours for distribution. In the evening we went for a temporary shelter. We were settled, and in the next day we began to explore new places. For a month we lived in the city of Varna in the Golden Sands area. This is a tourist area near the Black Sea coast. Hotels, casinos, souvenir shops, restaurants and cafes. In the evening everything shimmered with the bright lights and beckoned with signs. Tourists were sitting at the tables, speech was heard everywhere in all languages of the world, music was playing, cute couples were taking evening walks along the coast, and so it was until dawn. In the morning, the sun's rays reflected in the Black Sea. Empty streets, birds singing, gave the place a special, unique romance. But after a couple of hours, people came out into the streets, shops and restaurants opened, the streets were filled with the scent of roses, which are the natural symbol of Bulgaria. and the alluring aroma of delicious traditional Bulgarian cuisine.
After a month in Varna, where did you go next?
After that, we were transferred to the distribution center. During this period, my mother met the mother of Mikhail Skripchenko, whom you know as Mike. After we were distributed, our road went through a wonderful town in the mountains, Bansko. The beautiful architecture and history of this city amazed me more and more every day. Painted houses, wooden shutters on the windows, all paving stones gave color and romance. For 14 days of our stay there, we gained incredible impressions and visited several natural attractions. There is a forest near the town, and most of the time we spent walking, enjoying the diversity of local flora and fauna. When we returned home, mountains flaunted outside the windows. In winter they pleased not only the gaze of tourists, but also lovers of skis and snowboards. In the mountains of Bulgaria, there are many small ski towns, and all of them were connected by an old railway with a couple of entire trains for several wagons.
After this adventure, unfortunately, we have to leave this beautiful city and go to the capital of Bulgaria, the city of Sofia. It was painful for us, part with such beloved place, but we have to move on, and on the 15th of June at 6 in the morning, we went by train to the airport. After 10 hours, we were already in the city, and there was only one remaining train to get to the airport. At the end of the day, we were already waiting for our flight. A couple of Ukrainians were waiting for the flight with us. After a few hours of waiting, we finally managed to board to the plane, and our journey to Bulgaria came to the end. On June 16, we were taken to the city list, where we received our documents and began to wait for distribution. A day later, we were exaggerated, and we took a bus to the Sligo. We were placed in the hostels and spent the rest of the summer there. Ireland showed me a completely different world, not like Ukraine or Bulgaria, different architecture, culture, and people. The biggest difficulty at the beginning was the language, because it was completely different from the Ukrainian speech we are used to. But after a few months, communication became a little easier, and again I was surprised by the nature and history of Sligo. A few weeks later, we drove to one of Sligo's main natural attractions, Glenser Falls, also known like a Devil's Pipe, which is the main source of water for Lake Grenser, between Hamilton Manor in County Leitrim and Sligo in County Leitrim. Devil's Trumpet, despite in the small hay, only 15 meters, is probably the loudest waterfall in Ireland. After a couple of months, we have to change our place of residence. Then we got on the bus and we were transported to Dingle. I immediately liked this town, the small narrow streets, cute colorful houses, and pleasant people. I was also fascinated by the natural beauty of this town. In the autumn, I started school here, in PCD, and as a person who has changed several schools in my life, I can say that this school is the best of those which I studied. I am grateful to Ireland for providing an opportunity me to get an education and work here, which is not available in other countries. During this academic year, I learned and discovered a lot of new interesting things. I met new classmates who, in my opinion, turned out to be the most friendly of those that I knew. Despite the fact that I did not speak English well enough, and even more so Irish, they accepted me as a friend and helped me figure it out and understand everything.
ورغم ما أقبل